Hey everyone, thank you for joining. I'm glad to see everybody's. We have different locations, Japan, different institutes, universities, and Australia, Kazakhstan. So pretty diverse audience today. And we have about 1 or 2 minutes. Let's wait a little bit more so that we have all joining and starting this celebration together. And who just joined us, please share where you connecting from. Where are you from? What university or country are you from? Okay, so it's 5 p.m. I think we can start. I'm really glad to see super diverse audience today. And greetings to everyone. I'm really glad to see you all on this International Women's Day celebration of progress and not perfection. And we have 4 speakers today, women from research, software engineering, community development, and with the leadership skills and community development mindset. And today, I want to thank all the organizers, WomenTechmakers Ambassadors, and Google Developers Student Club from Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. And this summit is going to be facilitated by me. My name is Aya. I'm originally from Kazakhstan, and I'm GDSC lead at Sokendai. Could you please introduce yourself, the facilitators? Thanks.
Yep. So I'm Jacqueline. I'm the GDSC lead at RMIT University in Melbourne. I'll pass it to Haruka.
If Haruka is not present yet, then we can go using this slide.
Yeah. Do you call me? Yeah. I'm Haruka from Keio University in Japan, and I'm learning about computer science, especially machine learning and blockchain. Nice to meet you.
Okay, let me just quickly introduce facilitators. So we have Rose, GDC lead Waseda, Hitomi, GDC marketing team from Osaka University, Naoya, GDC lead from Osaka University, Risa, GDC team of Osaka University, Sujata, GDC lead from Tokyo Metropolitan University, and Ali, GDC lead from Ritsumeikan. And I'll pass the slide to Ali.
Thank you, Aya, and again, welcome everyone to this event. So I will just quickly go over just talking about what is International Women's Day. And basically saying it's a global holiday on March 8th every year that marks a moment to celebrate and provide visibility for the incredible contributions of women around the world. And it's called is a call to action for accelerating gender parity. And IWD is a WomenTechmakers annual event campaign where our community hosts events all around the world during the months of March and April in celebration of this moment. So for today's theme, we will be talking about the progress, not perfection. And this is this year's theme that celebrates all kind of progressions, big or small, and the strengths we demonstrate when we don't let fear hold us back from following our dreams. And our paths aren't always linear, and we may come across seemingly impossible challenges. But when we celebrate progress, not perfection, we are celebrating all we've accomplished, big or small, and our inner strength and resilience that allowed us to get here.
Thank you, Ali. If anyone wants to share, how do you understand or how do you relate to this theme, progress, not perfection, please share in the chat your comments.
Okay, then, and for today's agenda, from this 5:05, we will have ending of the opening ceremony, and then we will have our first speaker, Ms. Hasegawa Mariko, president of Sokedai University, followed by Sato Shoko, WTM Tokyo and GDG Tokyo, and several in line. And after that, we will have Mochizuku Mochiko Merikari from Merikaring, and after that, we will have Yasuda Kinuko from Google Germany. And finally, from 6, we will have Q&A session, so you can ask all your questions.
Awesome. And for active participants of the Q&A session, we have 3 GDSC merch giveaway. So please stay active, ask questions on the chat or during the Q&A session, and have fun, enjoy. Let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Hasegawa Mariko. Dr. Hasegawa Mariko is the president of Sokendai, the Graduate University for Advanced Studies, and majored in behavioral ecology and physical anthropology. Dr. Hasegawa started research on wild chimpanzee, fallow deer, and wild sheep in Great Britain, and peafowl in Sri Lanka. And recently, Dr. Hasegawa is conducting research on human evolution and adaptation. In 2008, Dr. Hasegawa became the president of the Human Behavior and Evolution Society of Japan and received the Hidaka Award from Japan Ethological Society in 2012. So please, Dr. Hasegawa, we are honored to have you today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your introduction. It is really a great pleasure for me to be here, to be able to talk to you. I wish that I really wanted to meet you in person, not online, but it's just better than nothing. Yeah, and I'm not really familiar with this GD. What was that?
GDSC.
GDSC, yeah, and I don't know many things about tech makers or anything. I'm from biology, and I have been doing a lot of teaching, and as you said, I became the president of the Graduate University for Advanced Studies in 2017, I think. Yeah, it's my last year. My term will end next March. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, and so today it's a talk about the progress, not perfection. Progress, but not perfection. Yeah, yeah. I think that my time was quite different from yours. I'm nearly 69 years old, and I got my PhD in 1986. And at that time, there was no term like harassment or the sexual harassment or the power harassment, and the people don't have any concept of that kind of doings. And so I experienced lots of harassment, the sexual and the power harassment as well. But nobody understood what's the problem. Yeah, and so I think that there are progress, and the world quite make a quite a progress, I think. Yeah, and so in Japan, I think that basically the women's status in Japan is not so bad. But as for the basic education or the general health or the fundamental human rights point of view, I think it is not so bad. Yeah, but still there are many problems that should be improved. And but I think that the most serious problem in Japan is that there are very few Japanese women among establishment. Means that the people who has a position, high position, who are responsible for decision making. Yeah, Japanese government many of the women now want women to work, and so that there are many they are taking a progress in aiding the working women as for the child care or anything like that. But basically, Japanese society it's my opinion, they don't want to have women in a responsible position. And so there are very few managerial positions women. Yes, so there are 86 national universities now in Japan, national university, more than 800, all of the private of the universities included, but there are only 86 national universities. And out of 86, only 3 had women president, including myself. Yeah, and this figure that hasn't changed at all for these 10 years or something. And even among the women's college, there used to be all the presidents are all men, not women, until 1996 or something like that. Yeah, and so I'm really I feel very bad about this very slow progress, and I have been making an effort to speak about this issue in many of the opportunities, including the talking to the parliamentary members and things like that. But usually they don't take me so seriously. Yeah, and they think that the parliamentary members are included, and many of the high status men in Japan, they do want women to work more harder, and they can understand the pressure about the child care and the work-life balance or things like that. But they don't care about the high position in a woman with a responsibility for the decision making. And they usually they say that women are not prepared to do that. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that Japanese women are not prepared to do that. I think that the reason is that the society in general don't expect women to be that high status with the responsibility of decision making. Yeah, and I really wanted to show you one slide from my friend's research about the self-recognition or the self-assessment of the Japanese women. Yeah, and my friend, he died several years ago when he got cancer, and he was a famous social psychologist from Hokkaido University, Yamagishi Sensei. And he conducted many interesting research on the cultural differences of the attitude towards oneself. One of them is that experiment in a social psychology. It's a kind of famous social psychology experiment. You ask the participants to do some kind of difficult jobs, a quiz or anything, and afterwards you ask them, the participant, you ask them, how do they think they have succeeded in getting correct answers compared to the average of all the participants. And he conducted the research on the European American men, European American women, Japanese men, and Japanese women. And all of them answered quite modestly when they asked in front of the other participants or the in person. Yeah, and the average, better than average or the worse than average means that average is the mid, average is average. So that about 50% of people are average, over average, and 50% people are under average. And the people are usually very modest, so that they answer that, oh, maybe I'm under average. About 60%, 70% of people say so in front of the other person. But the European American men are most confident, and they overtly said that, answer that they are more better than the average. More than 60% of people say so. Yeah, so it's overconfidence. Yeah, but and the European American women, the percentage is less, and the Japanese men lesser, and the Japanese women are the least. The proportion of the women answer that I think I'm better than average. But if you ask the same question, in the condition of the total anonymity, with in a separate rooms, and ask the same question with the statement of that those analysis and everything will be total anonymity, and then the people are more willing to say their own opinion about themselves. And so that for all of the conditions, the proportion of people who answer that they think that they are better than the average, it increased. But the gap between the two conditions is biggest in Japanese women. So Japanese women in front of everybody, they don't say that they think they are better than average. But in fact, under the anonymity, more than 60% of the women said that answer that they think they are better than average. So it's the same thing. So under the anonymity, there are no significant differences at all. So that people are quite confident, and people quite right about their own assessment of their assessment of their own ability. But there is huge cultural difference, or the sex differences, in the attitude, how to express that in front of the other person. Yeah, and I think that Japanese women's modesty should not be taken for granted. They are inside their own mind, they are quite confident. Yeah, and I think that from my experience, I think that the key thing is that in a group, you have to have more than 30% of women. Otherwise, you can't take initiative. But if you have more than 30% of women in a group, in any kind of group, that you can take an initiative. I think that the critical proportion is about 30%. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, so that
Dr. Hasegawa, for sharing your openly your personal experience and some insights from the research about the problems and maybe some challenges women face that is based on cultural differences and maybe the influence of our surrounding. Thank you very much for sharing. If anyone have any questions or any comments, please, we can have like 1 or 2 questions now, or you can write in the chat and we can ask during the Q&A session. Maybe Dr. Hasegawa has not so much time to answer these questions during the Q&A session, but we will certainly pass these questions after the meeting, and we hope you can connect together and discuss these issues later on. And for now, I would like to proceed with our second speaker. Could please, Hirata, introduce our second speaker?
Our next speaker is Ms. Shoko Sato. She's the founder of Google Developer Group Tokyo and WomenTechmakers Tokyo as well. She's one of the 3 organizers of GDG Tokyo and hosts various types of meetups, hands-on workshops, collabs, and tech conferences. She was also involved in the management of Women Day Fest Tokyo, which focused more on the career of women engineers. She liked promoting activities that support women in different industries related to IT as an engineer. She feels that the tech conferences and other need to be gender balanced. To achieve this, she has been working to arrange a daycare center at the venues, share information on events to ensure psychological safety before the event, increase the number of women involved, and focus on creating easy access to the event. So welcome to Ms. Shoko Sato. You can keep the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for introduction. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to see you. So now I would like to start my presentation. But I don't speak good English. So if maybe difficult for you to hear me, please understand. I will share the screen with you. Please wait 2 minutes. Okay, can you hear me? Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shoko Sato. I have been organizer of GDG Tokyo since 2018 and organizer of WTM Tokyo and WTM Ambassador since 2019. In my day job, I have been working as a developer relations at the line since September 19, providing operational support for engineering organizations and technical public relations, as well as marketing. Today, I would like to talk to tell about leadership, which I believe is important in community management and project progression. Some of you may be somewhat of a leader since childhood. Some of you may be a supportive leader, and some of you may not be a leader at all. Today, I'm going to talk about how you don't have to be a leader to be a good leader, and how you can make your community or project as a whole better and more successful. Here is today's agenda. First, let's all think about what is leadership. Next, I will tell you why is leadership important. And finally, let me share what I want you to know about the importance of leadership from the lapses I have experienced. There will come a time when you all need to exercise leadership. That is when you become a team leader, a project leader, a parent, or leader someone. Then I'd like to ask you, what is leadership? Generally speaking, leadership requires these abilities. Number 1, the ability to set goals. Second, leadership or training skills. Third, communication skills. Fourth, judgment or execution. And the last one is the ability to take responsibility. The general image of leadership is that it is a skill that should be demonstrated by those who organize a team, such as a manager in a company or a class president in a school. However, leadership is not something that only a few people can demonstrate. It should be possessed by all members of them, and it should be exercised by everyone in order to produce high output as a team. Leadership here does not require talent or charisma, nor does it necessarily mean that you must lead the group or speak in front of the group. On the other hand, I also believe that influencing others to achieve individual goals in the workplace and team goals in leadership. And because of that, these abilities are necessary for non-leaders as well. Thus, any action that contributes to the progress of community or a project is leadership. Why is leadership important? When you know you want to do something, you can go ahead and do it alone. But when you are trying to accomplish something big, you need someone's cooperation and help. In such cases, leadership is the ability to get someone else involved and promote the project, which will become very important. How will leadership actually help you in society? It is significant that it increases the probability that you will be able to determine your own direction. Leadership is about thinking yourself and involving others. It means taking the initiative and making the first move. People who join a community and just wait for a job to come to them often lose out because by the time of boss drops the job on them, it is already too late, or they are thrown into a place they do not want to go. On the other hand, if you make your own move, it is easier to get in the direction you want to go, which is a plus for the company. By increasing the range of choices you can make, you will probably gain in a big way. Not only will it make your move valuable in the company, but it will also lead to more enjoyment and fulfillment. That's not just for business, but for any group of people. Based on my past leadership experiences, I'd be glad to share with you 3 things that I'd like you to know about good leadership. First, ability to take responsibility. Second, reset goals, make decisions and execute them. Third, ability to communicate and nurture. And finally, be aware of the status of those around you. Let's talk specifically about how to use these abilities well. Using example of real problems that have occurred in the community. What happened in this community would apply to team in school, in organizations after you enter the workforce, and in project teams. When I first joined a community, I had a very difficult problem. I was preparing for an event. However, 2 weeks before the event, the leader who was in charge of the event lost contact with me. How was this possible? We were 2 weeks into the event and nothing was ready. We thought this was a bad situation and immediately changed the leader, but since the event was held offline, there were a lot of preparation to do. Behind this problem was a lack of leadership awareness among all members. First, ability to take responsibility. When this trouble occurred, it was not only the event leader's lack of responsibility that was a problem, but also the members. They put the blame on the leader and assumed that the leader would be running the project. Taking responsibility is very hard, but if you cannot take responsibility for what you do, no one will trust you and no one will follow you. Especially leaders have the responsibility to see a project through to the end when something goes wrong with it. Read for the success of project, the ability to take responsibility, also the ability to team. Showing your own leadership skills. Second, reset goals, make decisions and execute them. When the project leader lost communication, no one knew what was going on or how far along the task was. This is a situation that people tend to get into if they have no experience in project progress. Schedule management and goal setting are very important for a project. It is the leader's role to set goals, make decisions, and promote implementation. However, each member of the team must be aware of the goals and have the ability to make decisions and execute what needs to be done in a situation at hand. What was important in making decisions at that time was to prioritize. A leader's decisions must always consider what needs to be done to achieve the goal. Third, communication, and nurture. Let us consider what is the primary cause of the situation. I believe it is due to the lack of smooth communication among the members. Communication is the most important aspect of any community, project team, or organization. The ability to notice whether each person's motivation and direction are aligned, whether tasks are being overlooked, and whether anything unusual is happening is one of the most important communication skills. This time, no one noticed anything unusual about the leader, and even if they have noticed something unusual, no one would have called him out. This is a situation where the team is failing as a team. To keep a project moving forward, notice the status of your team members. Try to communicate with them by talking to them and see if there is a problem with their current situation. Be aware of the status of those around you. My personal goal is always to make members involved in a project feel good about their involvement. To reach this goal, communication is very important, and I try to make sure that the members feel fulfilled and rewarded. If you too communicate well with your members, you will have many people to help you when you need to be a leader. Leadership can only be demonstrated when there is someone. I have told you 3 important things in this issue. First, even if you are not a leader, having a sense of responsibility is very important for the success of a project. Second, always keep in my mind how to achieve the goal and make appropriate decisions and actions depending on the situation. Individual members can also move with an awareness of the goals, which will lead to success of the project. And finally, above all, communication is important. Be aware of the situation and status of your members and build a good relationship with them. Always remember, do a good deed, stand up and lead. Thank you very much for your attention. And today I don't have enough time. If you have any questions, please DM me in my Twitter. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Shoko. It was really great advices and personal experience of how to be a leader. And it's not always about leading someone's life or a project. It's about being responsible on your own projects, on your own deeds. Thank you very much. And now I would like to introduce the next speaker. We have Rose to introduce Kinuko.
Hello, everyone. This is Rose from GDSC Waseda. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kinuko Yasuda. Dr. Kinuko is a senior staff software engineer at Google. She majored in computer science and received her PhD from Keio University. And she has worked both in academia and industry, and then joined Google Japan as a software engineer. Then she moved to Munich recently, and now she works at Google Germany, where she leads projects in programming languages and software development foundations. Ms. Kinuko, I will lead to you. We're really excited for your talk.
A lot for introducing me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So let me just start presenting my slide. Okay. So again, hi everyone, I'm Kinuko. I'm very excited to be able to be here and talk to you today. Today, I do like to talk about something about perfection, why it is totally okay or even great that you are, but we are not perfect. So let me introduce myself again. I'm a software engineer working at Google. I'm also a mother of two boys, 5 and 7 years old. I'm mostly staying at home these days, and I actually like staying at home or traveling around. And I wanted to travel around, so recently I have moved to Munich in Germany. So that's me. And now let me talk about what I do. I'm currently working on programming infrastructure in Google. And before joining the current team, I used to work on Chrome browser team. And before then, I was a YouTuber, not as a video producer, but as a developer writing code for YouTube. And before doing so, it's a bit of history, but I also once was a researcher, but at some point I gave up doing so and have become a software engineer. I do really like what I do today, and I did really like what I used to do. So now I want to briefly talk about what I do today, that it's a part of what I do today, that's program analysis. This may sound a bit remote to you, but it actually very cool topics. So let me explain a little bit. So I don't know if every one of you write programs, but if you do, let's just imagine, do you expect that your program works perfectly? I made up some pseudocode for you here. It's the code, it's supposed to buy a milk if the shop has eggs, buy 6 of them. And it will buy 6 of milk or 1 milk. Some of you might suppose that it might be wrong. It's not about programming assignment, so let me just talk about it. This isn't a great example, but anyway, this program is wrong in a way that it misinterprets what it was supposed to do. So actually, the programmer wanted to get 1 milk, and if they had eggs, they also wanted to have 6 eggs. But the point here is not about eggs or milk, but it also about it happens not only in your program, but can happen in any program written by anyone, because humans make mistakes, and that's the nature of humans. So here's a new question. How would you try to verify that your program does what you want? Because it's very important. You want to make your program work for you. And a very common way is to write a test program to test it. So you give an input to the program, run it, and see if its output matches what you expect. That is an excellent approach, but there's a caveat. First, remember what I said, if the tests were written by humans, the tests can be wrong. And secondly, this can't really have a perfect coverage. It can't cover every possible combination of the inputs. Imagine what kind of computer software exists around you: video chats, net banking, interactive games, or something like this. These programs take input from the real world, and there can be infinite number of combinations. No, you won't be able to cover every combination. So that's what program analysis can help a bit. There are many types of program analysis, but here I talk a little bit about static analysis. For the what static analysis is, it's about, so unlike testing that actually runs the program, static analysis doesn't run the program. Instead, it statically analyzes the source code by examining every possible path that can logically take to see if a given condition can be satisfied or not. It might sound a bit harder to imagine, but that's what it does. And in order to solve that logic problem, there's a cool magic behind the analysis that's called SMT solver. It's not an AI in the usual sense, and it's a relatively small problem, but it can actually solve many types of interesting problems for you that you won't be able to solve without computers. To give you some idea, let me pick one interesting example. Someone solved how many calories they can get by paying 1,000 yen at Saizeriya using the solver. This may not sound complicated, but no, you won't be able to get an answer if you simply try possible combinations. So that's one of what I'm doing. I hope you found it cool, but that's not the only thing I wanted to talk. Now, I also would like to talk about you and I. So I have a heavier question for you. What is your dream, and what was your dream when you were a kid? Let me talk about mine. This is the same slide that I showed in the beginning. Please notice the last line. I was once a researcher, but I gave up. And now rewinding the time a bit. When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a research scientist. That's what I gave up. At 5 years old, I had no idea what scientists would do and what I would be good at. There are many stories behind that, but one thing I want to talk about that is there are so many things that you can't predict or control. For example, it's just about my example, but when I want to wake up early, I often can't. When I want to sleep, I often can't. When I want to stop watching YouTube, no, it's not what I want. I can. Let me go on. There are some more. When I want someone to do something, it often doesn't happen. When I want someone to like me, it's not what always happens. When I had something that I wanted to be good at, I haven't necessarily become good at it. When I wanted to have kids, there were times I wasn't able to do. When I didn't think it'd be a good time to have kids, I actually had. So, and now what I am with 5 and 7 years old, they are awesome in my perspective, but they are totally uncontrollable. Life is tough, isn't it? But I came to a conclusion that it is probably okay. And there are things that I can control and that I cannot. That's it. But you may wonder why it is okay. You may think that it probably isn't okay, but it's just what we need to accept. Well, that's half true, and there are things that are not absolutely okay, and in that case, you should speak up. But I wanted to talk about the remaining half of it, and in order to do so, let me now talk a little bit about leadership. I keep asking questions, but this time it's about leadership. So what kind of leader might you want to be? Let's say, it's one example, but you would envision the ideal future and build a perfect roadmap towards it and lead people to execute the roadmap to realize the vision. That would sound great, wouldn't it? But will that really work like that? Remember, many things around you are actually beyond your control. You will find that something new that you haven't imagined will happen. You will find people around you take what you said differently. You and your people will make mistakes. And that's the nature of this universe. Any complicated dynamic system will never be perfect. Because it keeps changing, it will interact with each other. And there are infinite number of things that could happen. That's not what you can control entirely. In a sense, leadership is about dealing with chaos and uncertainty. And the leadership is about envisioning the future regardless, knowing that it will be imperfect and it will change. I hope you also start to see the connections. It's also about your dream. You might be concerned about your dream and your future, but it's okay. Your dream doesn't need to be perfect from the beginning. You should just envision it. It's okay if it's not your real future in the end, but you just can keep thinking about it, and then it will evolve or emerge. When I was at your age, I never dreamed where I am here today. I never dreamed that I might become a software engineer as a leader of teams with over 100 of engineers in Google. And yes, I still make mistakes every day. And I feel that I am very imperfect. But yes, that's okay. I hope that you are getting it too now. And here are my concluding remarks. Please remember what I said. Your dream may not be perfect now, but you do not need to wait until it becomes perfect. Just try to envision your dream boldly, let it grow, embrace the uncontrollables, and you will become a strong leader in this chaotic world. So that's all. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot to the organizers as well.
Thank you so much, Kiniko, for your great presentation and a different perspective on the leadership, on progress and the perfection. And if anyone of our audience wants to ask questions, it's a great time for to ask question by unmuting yourself or writing in the chat. And I want to quickly take a small break and ask everyone how you are doing. And if you want, you can use the emojis on Zoom to just update how do you feel. Is it interesting? Is it exciting for you? We have one more speaker for today. And I would like to ask one of our facilitators to present the last speaker.
Our next speaker, Mochiko Mochizuki, is an expert in Android, iOS, and domain-driven design. She is currently working as an Android engineer at Mercari, Japanese largest free market app company. In addition, she has been working as a software engineer for several companies for over 10 years and presenting at engineering events such as Deloitte Kaigi and WomenTechmakers. And now I'll hand it over to Mochiko.
Yes, thank you for introducing me. Hi, I'm Mochiko, and I'm really glad to have a session to here. And this is my first challenge for having a presentation in English. So if you couldn't understand or if you couldn't listen what I'm saying, please feel free to ask in the chat or the subsystem of the questionnaire. Okay. So let me share the screen. All right, so different from other speakers, I will give some workshop for the mobile app development. So before starting the workshop, I'd like to share I'd like to share a little about my career in tech industry and which has grown along with the evolution of Android and introduced Jetpack Compose, the cutting edge of Android development. First of all, let me introduce a little about my career. I have been working as an Android engineer at Mercari for years now. And I've been working as an engineer for more than 10 years, but I did not originally plan to become an engineer, as like Kiniko-san. I majored in sociology in college and wanted to be a book editor. But I couldn't find a job of an editor when I graduated. Then I jumped into engineering somehow. I got a job at the small system development company with no experience and learned Java. I learned Android development as training for when the recession hit my company and my company didn't have any job. I got hooked on app development and looked for work and finally joined to Mercari. So I've been able to continue being as an engineer because I have challenged myself to do what I enjoyed at the time. It is an unexpected career, but I try to take on challenges when I get the chance, like this session. They say that this kind of career development is called a planned happenstance. I really agree to Kiniko-san about the life is uncontrollable, but it's okay. It has been more than 10 years since Android was born, but the technology keeps evolving and keeping up with it has been my career. So today I'd like to share a few of the latest app development trends with you. Today, I will explain about the advantage of using Jetpack Compose, a trend in Android app development, and introduce the essence of practical and highly reliable app development by walk through the building a small app. Jetpack Compose is a UI framework for mobile app development known as declarative UI. Mobile app development has a trend, and Jetpack Compose, a declarative UI, was developed in the recent years to solve the complexity of the app UI implementation and influenced by the trend of web app. So what is the declarative UI? Used to do it the imperative UI. Imperative UI frameworks such as Android View use a pre-laid out view. It's needed to finding the relevant view at first and then execute the command to manipulate the display of that view. So this is fine for one or two views, but when you have a lot of data and views, the code becomes complicated with many operations. On the other hand, declarative UI declares a complete form for the state of certain data. Compose handles redrawing only when the state of the data changes, so there is no need to manipulate the view one by one, and the code can be written simply. For example, you can write a text field as required, and then write the alignment, font, and colors of each field. So code is simpler and more readable than ever before. It's saving time and maintainability. The difficulty of app development is not only the UI manipulation, but also the data manipulation, data operating. So app developers are constantly researching how to separate UI and the data processing. Google developer site has been recommending such a structure to develop these codes in an ordinary manner. What I present today is the combination of the practical MVVM architecture pattern and Jetpack Compose. MVVM is an architectural pattern that is one of the pattern of the how to separate the content of the code. So MVVM is an acronym for model view model. Model which holds the data, view which controls the display, view model which holds the model and manipulates the model for the view. So MVVM is characterized by the fact that view model holds the state of drawing the view and converts the input received from the view into the appropriate form and communicate it to model. So there are several reasons why I recommend MVVM for Android application development. One of the difficulty in the handling the life cycle of a mobile application, such as suspending and returning to the screen. Android architecture component that Google's official library provides a view model that supports the data retention and return along the app's lifecycle. In addition, the live data and the coroutine flow mechanism that propagate the changes in the data held in the view model by the streaming are well developed. And when combined with the mechanism of the redrawing only the parts that have changed in Compose, the code can be written in very simple way. The appropriate architecture depends on the requirements of the project actually, but I think MVVM is one of the clearest and simplest architectures to build an Android applications at the moment. So let's follow the architectural code and to understand Jetpack Compose and the MVVM practically. We will create a simple counter app that increments a number when a button is tapped. So how many people have an experience for the developing the mobile app? So I don't know though. So if you have Android development environment at hand, try it out. If you don't, please try to download the Android Studio of developing environment. So the sample code is on the GitHub, so you can try it out later. So at first, start by selecting the Jetpack Compose template from the Android Studio project creation. And then the project template is opening. So let's implement it according to the MVVM architecture. First, we'll create a counter data class as a model. This is a simple data model that uses Kotlin's data class to hold the int count, number count. Next, we create a state that represents the state of the entire screen. Since we want to display a counter on the screen, let the state holds the counter model. Next, creation a view model that manipulates the model. The view model uses the stream mechanism so that it can be notified of the changes in the state of the data. Let me see. Oh, sorry for stopping. Okay. So the to propagate the data changes, I will use the Kotlin state flow right in here. State flow is supported by the compose to make it simple to observe the notification of the changes. So also in view model, create a count up function that manipulates the model to count up when the user clicks the button. In the function, use copy function to create a new state and pass it incremented count to it. I want to go into detail of each code in here, but call update function to notify the update of data. So next view layer. To use Jetpack compose, add compose annotation to function. By calling correct as state function and extension function of compose, the UI can be updated according to asynchronously updated data. Column is a frame type compose that arranges the contents vertically, and the appearance can be changed using a modifier. Declare a text compose to display the counter number. The displayed text should be automatically updated according to the state counter. Declare the button lastly to count up and call the count up function of view model on clicks event. So next, activity. Bind the composable. No, at first bind the view model to the life cycle by this view model's extension function and delegation. And then the next bind the composable to activity. Activity is the base of the screen, so without the activity, we cannot show the composable of the view. So finally, the structure of files for the project is like this. So let's run the app. Yep, counter appeared and the user clicks the button and count will be upped. Yeah, that's the all of the code base. The code to run this simple functionality is simply separated along each responsibility. In an actual app, data manipulation within the model layer may be divided into the layers that handle more complex logic, such as the API calling or the data space access into the repository or the use case. but the basic structure is like that. So by using the declarative UI and architecture based on MVVM, each layer can be simplified to create an app that is easy to maintain. Yeah, what do you think? What do you feel? Does it seem complicated, or did you find the responsibility over each layer clear and easy to develop? And I'm not sure if you follow me up, so I hope that you enjoyed the sense of the first step of practical combination of MVVM and Compose on edge of the cutting edge of the mobile app development. So that's it. Let's enjoy the evolution of the technology and continue to grow together. Thanks.
Oh, thank you for the exciting presentation about Jetpack Compose. And these days I'm developing Android app and using decorative UIs. So the presentation was very interesting for me, and I got deeper understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to hear that.
I have a question to Miss Kinuko. Can I ask? Like you said, you used to be a researcher before coming into development, like app development. So, like, what made you to decide to go into that path? Like, how did you come? Because, like, I'm also, like, I'm studying at PhD right now. And sometimes it's hard and I just want to quit and I don't know, just start something new. And so I was excited to hear your story.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Let me see. So if I were now back to my university era, I might choose a different path. But anyway, when I made the transition, I think, what was the main reason? So I basically liked to make things that are used by people. Well, I kind of liked things that actively interact with people around me. While like a research that is also super exciting, but you basically need to come up with your own idea and make something to prove that works, but that one won't be used, but just basically be used to prove your idea, and you will be the only one who can defense your idea or something like that. I probably wanted to work with more people and create something, and I wanted to see how something I made could be used by people in the real world. So that was just my example, but I don't know. I hope gives you some idea.
Thank you. Yeah, actually I was also like inspired by Miss Mochiko too, because like two of you like completely changed your field of studies and the work environment, and yeah, it's really like inspiring for me. And yeah, thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you, Dimara, for your feedback and your questions. And please, if anyone have any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself or write in the chat. And if there is someone who wants to ask in Japanese, please ask in Japanese, because our speakers can answer in Japanese. And if anyone wants to ask in other languages, we will try to translate it.
Okay, we also got a lot of questions in the question form in the chat box, but we have a little time left, so I want to pick up several questions. First, question to Ms. Mochizuki-san. Thank you for practical session today. We've been learning Kotlin during our GDSC study jams, and the introduction to Jetpack Compose is interesting tutorials. I'm interested about your journey to mobile app development. How long did it take for you to learn Java?
In the first company, I had 3 months for the learning a basic of Java, and then I just jump into the real job. Yeah, I don't think I learned everything of Java in that 3 months. So yeah, it was enough time to know the little basic.
Thank you for your sharing. Yeah. If okay, the second question in the questionnaire form. Question to Ms. Yasuda. Thank you for your super motivating presentation. You raised many questions that are extremely relevant for students in general, but also males, PT candidates and women in particular. What sparked your transition from research to programming, and how did you deal with it at the time?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think probably the first question to me was somewhat similar. So, but let me talk a little bit more about that. So, yeah, I like before I started to do research, I also actually like to do programming. I studied programming at my university, so it wasn't like I did programming a lot, but generally just liked if I program something, then it happens. that felt magical. So I wanted to do a bit more when I made the transition. Well, another word, it was basically fun to do so. Yeah, so that was one of the motivation.
Thank you for any question in the Zoom session.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions to other speakers, and if there is no question from current audience to Mochiko or to Kineko, then let us move towards the closing of this IWD celebration. And let me share the screen.
All right, so cool. Hope everyone enjoyed the session. Hope you learned a lot, and it was really inspiring and insightful. So please fill out our feedback form, as we truly value your feedback, so we can improve in the future events by scanning this QR code.
And
yep, then feel free to connect with our speakers through their LinkedIn, and also I think Shoko Sato also sent her Twitter link on the chat, so you can ask if you have any further questions to them. And yeah, also if for the speakers, if you have any socials that you want to share to the audience, feel free to check it on the chat as well. Yep, so thank you for all the speakers and for everyone who attended this event, and for all the organizers who support in making this event possible. So yeah, thank you for coming, everyone.
thank you. Thank you.